With COVID-19 weighing heavily on everybody's minds, I thought I'd go a little lighter today and talk about one of my surf stories. So this surf story takes place during the storm of the century in 1993. And the storm of the century on the East Coast started down in the Gulf of Mexico as a low pressure and brought its way all the way up the eastern seaboard, dumping 22 inches, 2 feet of snow all the way up. It didn't snow where I was because I was on the coast, but it was this massive storm, and they called it the storm of the century. It kind of caught everybody by surprise, and I woke up that morning and came outside, and the winds are blowing 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, and we're all kind of like, what's going on? And we headed down to the Sound, and the Sound is not the ocean side of the island, but the other side of the island where there's an intercoastal waterway and estuaries and bodies of water, and that's where everybody's boats are moored and everything. And there was literally 3-foot seas in the Sound hitting the beach. And nobody was prepared for this. And there was boats floating down the Sound, the intercoastal waterway, broken docks just floating away in floating docks. So I ran back to the house, put on my wetsuit, went out and swam out and saved a bunch of boats that were just floating down the intercoastal waterway. Had a big long rope, and I'd tie a rope onto it, and I had some buddies on the beach, and we were pulling the boats in and securing them. There was floating docks, and I'd go out there and swim out there, get those and tie them up, and we'd pull those in. So that's what I did the first part of the morning. As the morning progressed to the afternoon, it got even windier, and it was probably now 60, 70 mile an hour winds. From what I understand, they clocked winds at 70 miles an hour in Wilmington, North Carolina, and Frying Pan Shoals, which is just offshore from us near the beach, had winds clocked around 91 miles an hour. So, you know, we got like 70, 80 mile an hour winds right there on the coast, and it is blowing. So giant waves are coming in, went up on the fishing pier, and the fishing pier is probably 20 or 30 feet high, and when the waves are that big hitting the fishing pier, the whole pier just rocks back and forth like this, you know? So the whole pier was just rocking back and forth, and these big waves are just hitting it, and we're up there having a good time. And I so badly wanted to jump off the pier and swim in. I was gonna go get some swim fins and jump off the pier, but I figured that I was gonna give somebody a heart attack having me jump off the pier. They probably thought I'd die, and I was like, you know, then I just didn't want to give anybody a heart attack doing that. If I was alone, I would have done it. So we get down on the beach after the pier, and the sand is literally blowing sideways, okay, because the winds are blowing 70 miles an hour, just gusts, you know, 70, 80 mile an hour gusts. And so the sand's literally blowing sideways, and it's just pelting you in the eyes. You can't look into it because the sand's just going straight in your eyes. So I went back home, and a buddy of mine says he wanted to take some pictures. So I said, fine. And what I did was I had an old wool blanket, and I ripped it into this big long scarf and wrapped it around my neck so that you could get an idea of how windy it was with the scarf going backwards like this. And I put some swim goggles on so that I could look into the wind, because there was no way, literally the sand was just sandblasting your face. So I put these swim goggles on, and I had this blanket, you know, ripped into these thin sheets wrapped around my head. And I got this 1 in a million photo that I'm gonna put up right now. And it looks absolutely like I'm skydiving here. So if you look at the photo, it looks like I'm skydiving in the air. But in reality, I'm only like 3 feet off the ground. What happened was the sand was blowing so fast that it blurred the beach underneath it. So you don't see the beach underneath it. And it also blurred the wave in the background. So the wave in the background looks like clouds when actually that's a wave breaking. You can't see the sand underneath me. The wool blanket scarf is flying back. And look at the pants on my legs. The pants are actually pressed against my shin, where the wind is blowing so hard that it's just pushing the pants against my shin. And, you know, so these are gusts at like 70, 80, 90 miles an hour. And it just looks like I'm free falling in the air. So whenever I show this picture, people think I'm like parachuting, but there's no parachute. So it was just a great day. These sand, goggles I had on my face, I could look into the sand. I literally had sand caked in my ears, sand all inside my scalp. My pockets were full of sand, sand everywhere. And it was just a great, great day. So when we were taking these pictures, I'm going to show these next 3 sequences of pictures. The first one, I'm leaning over like Gilligan's Island. This is what started the whole thing. There's an episode of Gilligan's Island where he's in this big storm and he's leaning over like this into the wind, and it has him like this. So I was trying to recreate the Gilligan's Island pose, one of my favorite programs of all time, by the way. So I'm recreating like this, and my feet are on the ground. The next picture, and I'm going to put all 3 of these up, I'd hop up into the air and lean forward a little bit. The third picture was the picture I originally stuck up. I said, okay, now I want you to really take this picture. And I just go like this, and I go, and I hop up into the air, and I have my feet out like this. And that was the first picture I did, and I'm just like in the air like this, but I'm really only 3 feet off the ground. But when you put all 3 of these together, it looks like the wind is lifting me up into the air. So when you put them all 3 together, it was just a great, great moment out there on the beach, and I was literally caked with sand. So that's what I did in the afternoon. Then the evening came, the wind switched around, electricity is off, got cold, it got so cold. It didn't snow on the coast, but it got really cold. And I ended up staying at a buddy's house who had a fireplace, and we all just slept next to the fireplace. When I woke up the next morning, the winds had gone offshore, and by this time it's still probably blowing like, I don't know, 30, 40 miles an hour, maybe 50 on the gusts. And it pushed all the ocean out. And I have never seen this before, but we have about a mile-long jetty there in Wrightsville Beach, and the ocean was pushed out halfway to the end of the jetty, and it was just this big, long expanse of sand, which I've never seen before. So this was one of my favorite days of all time, top favorite days, and it was just a great, great day, the storm of the century. You know, if you could take anything out of this, you know, go out in a storm. Don't be scared. Don't be huddled inside. Go out and experience a storm. Have the wind blowing in your face. Have the snow hitting you, the rain hitting you, whatever. But, you know, go outside and enjoy the storm and the real life of how it feels to be out in the wonders of nature. All right. So let's talk about Meyochi. Don't forget my 4 pillars of Meyochi, and that is flexibility, proper nutrition, stress reduction, and exercise of any kind. You follow my 4 pillars, and your quality of life will improve dramatically. So I have no beach to go to, so I guess I'm going to do some land paddling today. And I see you.